If we haven't met before, hi, I'm Carolyn Southwell, 2-4 emotional projector, and today is a follow-up YouTube live. In the last live, you'll be able to see it on the channel here. If you look in a section and look where it says live, the YouTube live streams. I had answered a question about, and I'm just looking down at my notes here on the phone. So somebody had asked a question about they were a projector and they were struggling to wait for the invitation when they're in debt. Now, I had talked about sort of one really important component there, and this video is going to be like the part 2 to that. So what I'm going to talk about actually applies to all human design types. So what I covered in the last YouTube live is what you need to do in order to change your situation if you are struggling with money. And because you are fearful about your situation with money, it means that you are finding it very difficult to live your design. So I talked about the actual what, but what I didn't talk about was why I made those suggestions or how it relates to human design, which is why I'm back to using my notes on my phone, because my undefined throat will go on all sorts of tangents and I will miss important things. Okay, so that's what I'm going to talk about in this video. Now, the most important thing that I want you to know is that if you are trying to follow your strategy and inner authority according to human design, assuming that you know enough about that already, that you know what your strategy is for your human design type and you know what your inner authority is, as in you know how to make decisions. If you weren't already unconsciously, automatically, easily doing that, and some people are, when they find human design, they're like, oh yeah, I kind of do that, which is great. But most people don't. So if you're not automatically already easily doing those things, then if you're feeling fearful, challenged, frightened, blocked when it comes to money, any way that that could show up, whether it's being in debt like this person was who asked the question originally, or you are struggling to make enough money in your job or your business, or you have accumulated lots of money but you're afraid of losing it, that's another way this can show up, then it's going to feel almost impossible to live your design, as in follow your strategy and inner authority and experiment with any of the things that human design are suggesting for you that you work with. So let's look at some tangible examples. So it's very common if you are a projector to struggle to wait for the invitation, because if you have been taught that you have to go and make things happen or you have to respond to opportunities as they come up, that's how your nervous system has been programmed, right? That's how you've been conditioned to do life. And that's how I see so many projectors, and this is also how I was sort of trained to do life. I wasn't taught that it was okay to wait for invitations. And so my journey in human design, and what I see with so many projector clients, is that they find it downright impossible to wait for an invitation because they're afraid that if they don't hustle and go and make things happen and respond to opportunities when they show up, that they will miss out on money, right? That they will miss out on opportunities that could improve their financial situation. So that's how it will often, most of the time, that's how it plays out for projectors. For manifestors, if you're a manifestor, you probably know the human design strategy is to inform. So informing others before you take action, either so they get the hell out of your way or so that they can get on board with your vision and help in an appropriate way that you would like. Now, if manifestor children were blocked, stopped, prevented from following their creative urges and doing what they wanted to do as a child, then it is completely normal and understandable for you as an adult to not want to friggin' inform anybody of anything. Thank you very much. The problem is that your informing is exactly what you need to do in order to either get people out of the way or get people on board so that you can then bring your creative thing to life. Now, if you're here on the live, feel free to pop in the comments and tell us that you're here. We're going through some examples of how this will play out in real life. So generators and manifesting generators, the way it shows up the most is that they will have been taught to be people pleasers. They will have been taught to not follow their gut, and So opportunities will show up, and instead of responding with a no because their gut says no, they respond with a yes because they're people pleasers. Or they want to say yes, but they convince themselves mentally that they have to say no because of the way that they've been conditioned. So again, if you're a generator or a manifesting generator who's struggling with money in any way that that can play out, the fastest way to unlock more money for you is to practice saying yes to your yeses and no to your nos. But if you've been so heavily conditioned that you have to do something other than what your gut tells you, it's going to feel really fucking hard for you to just start magically following your gut. Okay? Now, one more example, reflectors. So reflectors have to wait a whole lunar cycle to come into flow, to receive more money, to be in the right places, in the right environments, with the right people, etc., etc. But if you're a reflector who was taught to hurry up, hurry up, hurry up, hurry up, come on, hurry up, get with the program, move faster, which is extremely common because reflectors need to move very slowly, and our society doesn't make space for that. So if you are a reflector who was told to hurry up, that you move too slowly, then that's your whole system thinks, in order to make more money, I have to go faster. I have to do what I've been taught to do. And it will feel impossible to do what you actually need to do, what will actually unlock more money for you in an easeful, joyful, delightful, surprising way, which is to wait a lunar cycle before you jump into anything big and new, right? So you can see the conundrum here, right? This is going to be the case. I am confident that I can say at this point, 11 years into my journey with human design, that every single person, every single possible configuration, whatever your type, whatever your inner authority, whatever the nuances are of your design, if you are struggling with money, you are going to find it probably extremely difficult to quote unquote live your design and follow your strategy and inner authority. And you're not doing anything wrong. Your system has been so heavily programmed to do something that goes counter to how you're designed. And that's why I talked about in the last YouTube live of like what to actually do to shift it. Now, if you haven't watched that one and you feel like at this point for this video to make more sense, you need to watch it, I'll have a link in the YouTube video description. So the description below this video, and you'll be able to see that other live. And there's one other big chunk I'm going to talk about in this video. So I'll come down to my notes again. And I taught in here, I had some notes about inner authority. It's true if you're not following your inner authority, like you might be doing a great job. Let's say a generator or manifesting generator is doing a great job of noticing if their gut says yes, leans in, or their gut says no, no, not for me. But let's say they have emotional inner authority. That means they really need to give themselves a few days to just make sure, does it still feel like, if it felt like a yes initially, does it still feel like a yes? If they jump into things, they're still not going to make the money they want. They're still going to create the mess, because our human design chart shows us beautifully how we're going to unlock the greatest amount of money for us. And our work, I sometimes describe it like this, like if you imagine you've got your chart that you were born with, let's use one hand, you've got your chart that you were born with, and then you've got all this conditioning that gets dumped on top of it. Our work is sort of two parts. Like we can get very focused in human design circles of like understanding the chart. Who am I? What was I born to be? What am I here to do? And if we don't realize that if we don't deal with this pile of crap that's on top of it, we'll never be able to live this. So your work really, I think 20% of our time needs to be focused on who you were born to be, and 80% of the time, if you're really struggling, this is very, very true, if you're really struggling with an area of your life. In this video, we're talking about money, but it could be any area of your life where you're struggling hardcore and you have been for a long time. Focus 80% of your attention on pulling the crap off the top of what we would call in human design deconditioning. So the second part that I want to talk about in this video, and again, this video needs to be paired with the last YouTube live for this to be sort of a well-rounded whole lesson, is to talk about the power of emotions. So again, open throat, looking down at my notes to make sure I don't miss anything important for you. So Dr. David Hawkins, the author of Power versus Force, created a model called Scale of Consciousness. Now, I want to encourage you to just open up another tab on your desktop or on your phone if you can do it at the same time, and just type in Scale of Consciousness image. Look for an image, and you will see a sort of upside down pyramid thing that'll look like this, with probably names for emotions and numbers. Lots of people have done different versions of this, but they all look fairly similar. Now, if you are a fan of Esther Hicks, who channels Abraham, you will look at this image and you will recognize it because they teach it as the emotional guidance scale. It's essentially the same thing. Which came first? I do not know. It doesn't matter. They're both useful. They both point to the same thing. Now, if you look at this image, what you're going to notice is that the heavy or so-called negative emotions are down the bottom. So things like, a lot of things, but let's talk about shame, fear, and anger. You're going to find them really low. We already know that they feel bad when we're feeling them, right? They feel heavy. And when we're manifesting things, we're going to manifest things, situations that continue to trigger and continue to cause us to feel angry, fearful, shameful. Now, if you look a little bit higher on that scale, so we're going up towards the middle, you're going to find things, words like neutrality, willingness, acceptance. They feel much lighter. They feel much easier to move with. And as soon as we're rocking and rolling in that sort of vibration, you are going to start to feel easier about money. And you're going to attract situations that make space for more money to come to you. And however that needs to be for you. If you are the person who has struggled with debt, then you might be in a position where suddenly it feels easier to release some of that debt. If you're somebody who has struggled to make enough money in your job or your business, you might have more money come to you. Or if you're the person, these are the three main ways that I see it to show up for clients. If you're somebody who has a lot of money but you're afraid of losing it, if you can shift vibrationally to neutrality, willingness, acceptance, you might feel safer about the amount of money you have and feel more like you can hold on to it. Now, the juicy stuff. If we go further up this scale of consciousness or emotional guidance scale, you're going to see what we call positive emotions. So things like love, joy, and peace. People who teach a lot about manifestation will spend a lot of time talking about these higher emotions. And when you're hanging out in a space of love and peace and joy, even if you can only visit those vibrations once, twice, 3, 5 times a day, every time you visit those vibrations, even if you can't hold that frequency, that's where you're going to manifest more ease, more flow, more joy, more abundance, more money, right? A more easeful relationship with money. And when you're feeling really safe because you're in these higher vibration emotions, you're going to feel safer to experiment with your human design. So if you are a projector who struggled to wait for invitations and so you keep hustling or you keep responding, if you feel emotionally lighter, it will feel safer for you to not do the old behaviors and to just sit and wait and see what happens, right? We don't talk about this enough, anywhere near enough in human design. It's all well and good to say, just here's your strategy, here's your inner authority, go and live your design. But when our nervous system has been so strongly wired to do the opposite of what our design says, we need some concrete strategies. And if you are in those lower vibrations of the ones, especially like the ones that we talked about, fear, shame, anger, you're going to find it impossible to experiment with your design. You're going to find it, even the most strong-willed people I have seen have found it very difficult, which is why I talked about in the last YouTube live of like what to do to shift your way through those vibrations and spend more time in these higher, lighter vibrations, because all of the things that you want to manifest are going to come in above neutrality, right? So we have to proactively have practices that will shift us from these lower states higher and higher and higher. If we're going to attract more money or attract a more easeful relationship with money and feel safe enough to, if I'm a manifester, inform people, if I'm a reflector, wait a whole lunar cycle, etc., right? So now, a couple more notes on here that I want to make sure I say to you before I wrap up here. If you want to feel good about money, you have to feel good first. Now, if you've been playing with consciously manifesting things in your own life, you'll already know this law. But if you have never heard it before, it's going to sound weird. But I have seen again and again and again in my own life, especially in the last decade in business, in times when I have felt chronically stressed about anything, my revenue in my business has nosedived. And even at times when I have been marketing like crazy, when I've been doing all the right things and I've been working extra hours, if I feel bad, my results are bad. However, when I have been having fun, playing, enjoying my life, doing things that feel easeful and joyful in my business, doing things that feel easy and joyful in my personal life, even when I'm doing half the amount of work, I have clients come out of nowhere and I have more courses sell than on any other month. So it is so important that we prioritize, whether it's you struggling with money or you're struggling hardcore in any other part of your life, that you prioritize pulling the layers of stuff off the top of your energetic design, the stuff that's stuck, so that you can shift your baseline frequency from these lower vibrations higher and higher, because that's how you're truly going to shift things in your relationship with money. Now, let me know if you've had any experience with playing with any of this stuff. And if you've got wins to share, I'm happy to hear them in the comments. And maybe it'll be helpful for other people as well. And if you haven't watched the other YouTube live that I did, this is sort of I want to say that my answer to the original question that I had from a projector who was struggling with debt, it kind of has 3 parts. So I did 2 parts in this video and I did the other part in the past YouTube live. So I hope this was helpful and I'll see you next time.